Hello, and welcome to the library. Bet you didn't even know I had one. Tell you the truth, I haven't been here that often myself because it's upstairs and, I'm old. Don't like stairs. Anyway, this is the first ever Dr. Wiggo on books. Because, as I mentioned at the end of my last video, back in my day, the way we didn't binge watch because you couldn't, because you had to wait for things to come on. So we binge read. And so what I'm going to do in Dr. Wiggo on books is not just share with you some of my favorite books, but I'm going to share with you some of my favorite book series so that you can binge. And it just so happens that over Christmas, I was at Barnes & Noble. They had a big sale the week after Christmas where everything was half off. And I bought a bunch of books. And one of the books I bought was this one. I will put a big copy of it on the screen next to me. It's by a Robin Hobb. And I didn't know this book existed. I had read many of Robin Hobb's previous books, but I did not realize she had written another trilogy. So back in 1995, when I was finishing up my PhD, my friend Ed turned me on to this book by Robin Hobb. And it was part of her first trilogy that she wrote called the Farseer Trilogy. And these three books came out in the late 90s. And I read them and I loved them. Now, by the way, if you want to skip on, let me just tell you, there be dragons. So if you can't put up with the kind of fantasy that has dragons in it, well then none of the books I'm going to talk about, there's many sets of books here, all following the same thing. So you're not going to want to read any of these books if you don't like dragons. By the way, if you do like dragons, these aren't like any dragons you've ever encountered before. So and let me warn you, you won't see a whole lot of them in the first trilogy because the dragons are... Let me explain. The first set takes place in this kingdom called the Six Duchies and follows... Well, I'm not going to tell... I don't want to do any spoilers, but it follows... The protagonist is a very interesting person and basically assassin. The first book is called Assassin's Apprentice, which kind of sets the tone for the fact that there's going to be assassins. And then later, there will be dragons, but much later. So this first trilogy follows this character who is the assassin's apprentice and becomes an assassin, and then turns out to be a whole lot more than that. And it's a great trilogy. It has a satisfying conclusion. I was quite happy after I finished reading it. But Robin Hobb was not done because in 1998, she started another trilogy called the Liveship Trilogy, set in a completely different country, in a different land, and it's only as you go through it do you realize, wait a minute, this is the same planet and the same time, it's just like the other side of the world. So, I don't know how many of you are gamers, but it's kind of like the Trails of games. Trails of Cold Steel, Trails in the Sky. It's a series of games. There's a trilogy and then another trilogy, and then which are all set on the same planet, the same continent, but they take place in different countries, and then eventually they start meeting up. I love those games. Well, guess what? That's how these books work. They start intermingling, even though they're in completely different places. They are on the same world, and they're contemporary. So characters can meet. You can have a character from the other trilogy come swinging through and have a little... I love books like that. Michael Moorcock used to write books like that back in the 60s and 70s. I read all of those where he did one series called The Eternal Champions. And if you read one book, it was about Elric, and you read another book, and it was about Corum, and then there was another book about Corwin, and they were all completely separate. But then in one chapter of all of their books is the same chapter because the three of them come together and work together and then split their part. So by the way, it's the same story told from 3 different points of view as they come together, do their thing together, and then split apart. I love that. Well, Robin Hobb does this in these books. Now, the next trilogy is the Tawny Man Trilogy, which jumps back to the Six Duchies and those characters years later. Oh, by the way, these things also span decades. So they go back to the earlier characters from the first trilogy we get back to in the third trilogy, and they have some phenomenal adventures. The next trilogy isn't a trilogy, it's 4 books. I think she meant it to be a trilogy, but she couldn't stop herself, and she wrote a 4th book. So, and it's called the Raymond Chronicles, since it can't be called a trilogy. So the Raymond Chronicles go back to the second trilogy, to the other side of the world, except now at this point we've been back and forth, so they're coming together more and more. And I thought the whole series ended after the 4th book of the 4th trilogy. I thought we were done until Christmas, this past Christmas, again when I was in Barnes & Noble and found this book. And I went, oh my goodness. She came back and wrote another one, true to form, back in the Six Duchies. But swinging back through, I mean, they're just amazing. Anyway, it's a phenomenal set of books. So you have one trilogy at one end of the world, then a second trilogy at the other end of the world, then a third trilogy back at the original end of the world, then 4 books back at the other side of the world, and then we go back to the original for the possible conclusion. This book came out in 2017, and with most of these trilogies, they come out like bang, 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 and then like a year or 2 gap, and then bang, bang, bang. So the first trilogy was 95, 96, 97. The Liveship Traders Trilogy was 98, 99, 2000. The Tawny Man Trilogy was 2001, 2002, 2003. The Raymond Chronicles, now there's a gap. It's 2009, 2010, 2011, 2013. And then this one was 2014. So if I've just been paying attention, it just came out a year after the last book of the previous set. 2015, 2017. And there has not been one in the 5 years since. I have checked. But that is 16 books. So if you want to do a binge watch, or back in my day, a binge read, this is many, many, many hours of entertainment. I love these characters. I love the stories. Occasionally, especially like this last trilogy that I'm finishing, this is the 3rd book. As I'm finishing, it took a long time. There's a lot of character study, but of course you know these characters because you've lived with them over their entire lives. I mean, there's characters in this book who you met in the first book, only they're like 60 years older. So it's a fascinating set of books. I think overarching it's called the Raymond Chronicles, but I can't be sure of that. I will put links below to Amazon, to each and every book in these trilogies, and also the Kindle versions. By the way, oddly, in some cases, the paperback, the trade paperback, or mass market paperback, whatever Amazon calls it, is cheaper than the Kindle, and sometimes the Kindle is cheaper. Up to you. I will also give you the links. I don't know if they're links, but I will. Apple Books sells them, the trilogies, as single books for like $21, $22. So instead of spending $8, you spend $22 and you get all of them in one giant. Well, of course, ebooks, they're not actually volumes. So you can do Kindle, you can do Apple Books. They're all in print. I checked. I have the links below for you if you want to go buy them off of Amazon. I strongly urge you to read the first book of the first trilogy, Assassin's Apprentice, to see if you like it. And if you like it, you are in, like, there are 15 more books after it that are all currently available. So as I do these Dr. Wiggo on books, what I'm going to tend to do is focus on sagas, series of books like this. And so you won't have to put up with the thing I had to put up with. When I was reading these books originally, these Robin Hobb books, I had to wait a year or more between each book. You can just sit down and binge them. So for all my Dr. Wiggo on books of these series, I will always do them only after the last book has come out, so that you can then go and binge them and you don't have to wait. And I can tell you right now, there will be another Dr. Wiggo on books, I think in May, possibly June, because a friend of mine, Ray Feist, who has written some fabulous books over the years, well, he has the last book. Well, I hope it's the last book. It's the third book, and he usually writes in trilogies also. If it's the last book, I will do that. And then I will also tell you about all his previous sets. And again, you will have months of happy reading and binging of catching up on his books. That'll be Raymond E. Feist, if you want to go start looking at his older stuff now. But if you wait till May, I'll give you his latest, the last one in the latest set. And also, like with this, I'll put all the links down below, so you can just go down, order, read it, order the next one, read it, however you want to do it. I'm doing this because I think you'll like these books. Again, if you don't like dragons, you're probably not going to like these books. This is fantasy. This is like sword, sorcery kind of fantasy. Then there's sorcery. By the way, it's a different kind of sorcery. It's really cool. It's not, anyway, I'm not going to tell you. You have to go read it. So that is the first Dr. Wiggo on books. Robin Hobb, the Rainwild's Chronicles, Farseer Trilogy. It's a fantastic set. Again, all of the links are down below to all of the books in all of the trilogies. Well, and that one that's not a trilogy, that's 4. It's like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. You remember that? That was a trilogy that had 4 books in it. Except Douglas Adams insisted on calling it a trilogy even after the 4th book came out, which I thought was even more. But side recommendation, if you haven't read those, the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is a phenomenal trilogy with 4 books in it. And again, they were written years apart because he had the one idea, and then he went off and was like the script editor for Doctor Who, and then he took a Doctor Who episode that he wrote and turned that into, may he rest in peace. He was a fabulous humorist and author, and it's science fiction and funny, and I highly recommend Douglas Adams also. But today I'm talking about Robin Hobb. Go out and get not this book. Don't get this book. This is the last book. You want to read this one last, unless you're one of those kind of people. I hope you're not one of those kind of people. Anyway, that's it for the first Dr. Wiggo on books. For next week, I will probably be back in the dining room. Not cameras. Not going to be a camera. Don't worry. No more cameras. I'm done with cameras for quite some time, unless one breaks. Even then, it may be a while. So I'm done with cameras. But I have, I'll give you a hint. If the audio's good today, and as you know, the audio's been kind of spotty in my videos over the last few weeks. If you liked it in this video, well, I'm using my new microphone that finally came. And then next week, I will give you, I won't unbox it. Well, it's a microphone. You open the box and out comes a microphone. But I will show you, demo the microphone and show you how it works. So far, I've just done a little bit of testing. It's been fantastic. So we'll see how it works out. I didn't test it in this room, which has these kind of ceilings around the sides because it's upstairs, which may cause echoing. We'll see. But if you like the audio on this one, tune in next week where I will talk about the microphone that I'm using to record this. And I finally got rid of, I don't have a lavalier on for the first time, and I don't know, I think ever. I think I always had a lavalier mic on. I'm going to try to get away from those because they have not worked out well. Why am I telling you this now? Come back next week and we'll talk about microphones, and I have some other camera accessories that I will share with you. So, read Assassin's Apprentice. and then decide if you like it. Like I said, then there's 15 more after it, and I think you will be well and truly pleased. If you don't like the first one, then, well, you're out $8. But I hope you like it. Anyway, that's it for today. See you next time. Bye-bye.